What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin Jon.
Miller. And we have an album review for you. So one that I definitely had on my radar because this band is fucking insane and pretty much always entertaining was the newest album from Sigh, Shiki. This comes out on the 26th of August on Peaceville Records. This band formed in 1990 in Tokyo. This is their 12th full-length overall. I've been a fan since I heard Imaginary Soundscape, God, forever ago, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I'm pretty much right back to that point when I first heard them again, like, what the fuck is this? Because this new album, well, we're going to go into it.
Yeah.
This, in terms of like a basic description, is generally described as avant-garde / black metal.
There's not a lot of black metal.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's
really.
You can't really put.
There's not a lot of black metal on this even.
There's a little
bit, but
there's a lot of everything else.
Yeah.
Actually, Sigh, I would say, is one of my favorite Japanese exports next to Godzilla movies. And I adore the fuck out of Godzilla movies. And I love Sigh because I never know what I'm going to get. But I know it's going to be strange and 100% them. And, yeah. So we're going to attempt to describe this album and review it because holy shit, so much is going on here.
Yep.
I love how the first two songs, they really work together. The first one's like 16 seconds, but, you know, they got this underlying horror feel and theme and atmosphere to the thing, the whole album for the most part, but they get into some other stuff. But I love in this song the total horror movie feel to it. It reminds me of Necrophagia when Phil was in there way back in the day when he was playing guitar under the name Anton Crowley.
The doomy riffs that kick off Kuroi Kaji, which Kuroi Inori is just a 16-second death rattle from The Grudge. And yeah, no, it's creepy. It still is. But the autopsy worship that I think was kind of in their earlier material with Sigh kind of comes out and just this big, doomy, bendy, disgusting riff.
One of my favorite riffs on the whole album.
Yeah.
That is just nasty. And I love bendy riffs. The darkness and doom of that riff alone.
Yeah, normally I get on like if they repeat a riff way too much, but they pretty much repeat this riff and I don't care.
It's very welcomed.
Yes.
I mean, they break it up with like gothic chants, but that riff is kind of center stage. But they do interesting things around it, like add in like creepy organs. Like, I mean, it was weird. I was thinking of the Monsters, not that shit trailer for the Rob Zombie movie, but the actual Monsters that I enjoyed. It has that sort of like kind of spooky, but you know, we're kind of having fun here vibe. But it's the riff itself that just, ugh.
It's gross. You gotta hear it.
Well, and I'm going to call it out right away. Mike Heller's work on this album, top notch. Some of the best drumming I think I've ever heard out of the man. I mean, I would immediately compare the drum style on this record to both Gavin Harrison and Thomas Lang because it is that good. I can't say enough good things.
I've been a huge fan of his since he joined Fear Factory back in, 2010, 2000, whatever.
In between court proceedings, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But, man, the dude is on point, and this is his best work. 100%.
It really is. Like all the extra percussion, how he accents stuff, the rhythms themselves. This is, all right, like, you're going to have to describe this band because it's weird. And from album to album, it can get a different kind of weird to a different kind of weird. And this is kind of another different kind of weird because there is so much going on here, like classic heavy metal, thrash metal, black metal, weird, trippy, like prog section.
A lot of prog, dude. There's a lot of prog nods in this record. I would call this more of a prog record than I would an avant-garde record.
Yeah.
And hearing Heller play on other bands, like he's kind of more in a box. This band, well, the box is fucking huge. Yep. So, yeah, kind of just do what you want, whatever you think sort of accents the songs.
And it turns out Heller's bag is fucking huge. This dude turns it out.
I pretty much know as long as Marie Kawashima and Dr. Me Cannibal are at the helm of this, which they have been there since they started, as well as Satoshi Fujinami, who's been the longtime bassist there. This is kind of the core of the band, and they just write music that doesn't have any rules whatsoever. So there's so many different paths to go down on this. Like, again, this reaches out into genre hopping, kind of like I haven't heard in a little while.
Yes.
And transitionally, they know how to do it smoothly. Like, none of this feels like it lags at any point. None of it feels sloppy. It feels meticulous.
It feels like a bunch of really great musicians got together and wrote a very musical album. There's no way you couldn't be at the top of your game musically and play this with the precision and flawless nature that they did it.
And if you're going to go weird and try to push yourself creatively, you have to be, like, fucking good.
On it. There's no way that they wrote these songs without mapping them out, without sitting down with a metronome and talking about things. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, there's some, though, that came abrupt, like in Shikabanye, the middle part. It's cool, but it kind of stands out a little bit. The transition was a little rough in that one, but it's nitpicking.
I mean, I liked the fact that they brought in some, like, punk influence on that one, and then those wild drum fills that kind of just come out of nowhere, like...
that part, that's what I got in that part.
I can't say enough good things about the drum work, I really can't.
Yeah.
Man.
But to me, in that song in particular, which translates to corpse, it stood out because it was there, and it's like, we got the memo. Like, we know he's badass.
But I really like Shikabania for that reason, dude. Those massive fucking little drum solos. And it's just Groove City, that song.
Yeah, dude, there's a lot of, like, head nodding, maybe some hip shaking, too. I also have to say I got to give a lot of credit to Frederick Leclerc. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. He is actually the bassist of Creator, and he steps in on guitars in here, and his fucking flashy play adds so much. You get giant heavy metal leads, riffs of all kinds. He adapts himself so well to whichever weird avenue Sigh decides to take, which, believe me, they took them all.
Many. Speaking of really weird transitions that work, and there's a lot of that in this album. In Setsui Geishe no Ato, did I say that right?
Maybe.
I'm gonna take it. It's got a really epic sounding beginning.
Yeah.
Again, drum fills galore. This is thrashy, yet proggy, yet like jam band supergroup. The middle bridge has a hip hop type of section, kind of like a trip hop thing. Portishead, the Deftones, and the Smashing Pumpkins made like a weird spacey trip hop.
It's very dark.
It's very dark. And to me, it sounds exactly like the scene in any murder drama show or whatever, the montage of the killer going through his kills or setting up his gear or going out, that montage. This song would fit very nicely over that.
And honestly, it's a nice break from, probably a nice break for Heller because he's fucking working his ass off in here, but they shift to an electronic beat. And it's kind of cool how they kind of bounce around. Like, it starts off with a really dreary guitar line behind it, and it's like, oh, that's just creepy. But then you get synths that would accompany a trip hop song. And I mean, honestly, it kind of sounded like, if you're playing Castlevania and you're in town, except, the guy that you're buying potions from looks a hell of a lot like Snoop Dogg.
And you're going through the town with straight murderous intent.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to murder you people, but everything outside of this town is pretty well fucked. Snoop, give me the potion.
If murder was the case that they gave him.
And the potion. But the other thing I like about the song in general is the sort of Middle Eastern flair that kind of takes over. There's certain progressions on there and melodies that kind of reminds me of a more twisted version of Iron Maiden's Power Slave, like the song and some of the album. The lead guitar melodies in particular, there's just this vibe and this atmosphere, and all right, atmosphere in here is just kind of hard to describe because much like the music itself, the vibe changes so much. There's not a universal form of atmosphere unless weird is an emotion.
Spacey. It's often spacey.
Yeah.
There's a lot
literally. Literally.
Like the end of Setsui Geishe no Ato. I keep saying it because it's fun. The end of that sounds like somebody broke the asteroids machine, and then R2-D2 has a mental breakdown.
Honestly, I feel like I died in every Atari game ever. Or I'm in a haunted arcade.
But all at once.
Or I'm on Space Mountain, except it's being run by goblins and evil clowns. But it's the transitional atmosphere that I like. There's, most of the time on bitch, there's dead space in between tracks sometimes, or it just fades out, or they go into a fucking interlude and whatever. This kind of segues into the next track with some weird soundscape, and it kind of sets up the next track in a way that, all right, I'm kind of prepared for whatever's coming. I'm not, let's be completely honest, because again, this gets even weirder as it goes on. But I like that. Like it has this very complete feel to it. Like you can jam this whole thing through and be just as confused as us, but probably have a good time listening to it.
Very entertained. You know, when we got done listening to this and we were outside talking about it, we were all just kind of like,
upbeat.
wow,
Yeah.
that was pretty neat. And, you know, like, that was cool. And that was cool. And remember when they did this? And, like, that's a sign of a pretty good fucking record.
Yeah. And it sounds like they're just sampling little bits from here and there. Like, they're fully embracing whatever they're going for. Like, Shoja Hitsumetsu? Yeah. That's one of the heavier, faster tracks in here, pivoting between like black metal blast beats and just interesting heavy metal gallops. But it's those weird transitions between them, like they kind of come out of nowhere. Like it kind of reminds me of like Isan at his most aggressive and strange.
Sure.
But you have Meyonaka no Kai, which might be one of my favorite tracks here because that fully embraces like 70s prog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They muffle the guitars a little bit occasionally, like single track them, and then shift over to heavy spots. Which a cool thing on this album is going from soft to heavy on here. it's nuts.
Right.
But this song, like I got notes of like Jethro Tull, Yes, maybe even Hawkwind. It's just a nuts listen.
Yeah, and you guys are going to know that by listening to this review or watching us do it. We've mentioned a whole shit ton of bands that are very different.
Yes, from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like bands that probably wouldn't hang out in the same room. But
They
Sigh
exist in their heads.
listens to them all, apparently.
We are glad.
Yeah.
Right. I think one of my favorite songs, and really, I starred most of them, I'm going to be honest, dude. They're fucking great. But Fuyu Gakuru has one of the greatest grooves, I think, ever.
Super infectious.
It's extremely groovy, very spacey, trancing, like tribal. There's flutes. But the groove section that they do in here repeats itself like 4 or 5 times, and it's fucking awesome.
It's amazing.
Every time.
Like ghost notes on the snare, there's really cool cymbal accents, there's a bass line that goes through there. It's just, I don't know, like, it reminded me a lot of Alice in Chains, but specifically the song Sludge Factory, like, just kind of that whole dark, doomy vibe to it, but there's kind of like a pleasantness to it. Like, when it shifts from the heavy parts to that part, giant contrast, but the bridge in between, where you get Dr. Mechanical's haunting vocals, it's like a luau.
Yeah.
Yep, the tribal island beats and a pan flute.
It's so
and
awesome,
ghosts.
though. It's
And
so
fucking
cool.
ghosts.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
It's awesome.
That song in particular reminded me a lot of a band that we just reviewed earlier this year, White Ward.
Yeah.
A lot of the elements that they used in this song were very different from what you hear in most of anything. Again, going from tribal island to like 80s metal to a jammy prog section, and then the saxophones, the beautiful sexy saxophones. And I gotta get hand drums again. Man, I'm behind. I need some hand drums.
I'm totally cool if you get some hand drums put in that
Right on.
studio.
All right, I'm getting hand drums. It's happening.
You hear that, Sigh? You inspired them to get hand drums.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sigh.
there we go.
Get
And
some fucking hand drums.
I wonder if it has anything to do with Game of Thrones, because it means winter is coming. What Fuyu Gakuru means.
I don't know.
I wonder if it is Game
Well,
of
I mean,
Thrones.
it's a late summer release.
Oh, let us know.
They must know
Let us
that
know,
winter's
Doc.
coming.
I mean, honestly, like listening to the ranting and raving vocals on here, and I kind of wonder what all the subject matter is about, because I feel like there has to be some wild theme to go with this wild music. But vocally, that might be like my only gripe, is sometimes I feel like Murray kind of holds on to this one particular cadence in a lot of different spots. Like, it kind of gets a little robotic at times, but at the same time, you get these wild vocal changes that matches a completely different mood. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can really nitpick on here. Even the little interlude Koroi Kagami, kind of an interesting like lead-in with just sort of like some soundscapes, and then it fades into an almost like Faith No More like jam. Like, I know he's saying stuff in Japanese, but that kind of sounds like Mike Patton kind of doing his like groaning croon a little bit. And Toji no Asa, the very mood-shifting outro.
That's the unfucking. Like,
Yeah.
They've just messed up your brain. It's done, and now it's a chill trance.
Well, it's the morning of the winter solstice.
Oh, see, yeah, they're having a
So yeah,
meditative
it should be a
session.
chill song.
Yeah.
Sunrise over the snow. It probably looks beautiful
One of my
and serene.
favorite times.
It's that scene in Kill Bill, the end scene where Lucy Liu and what's her nuts, Uma Thurman fight each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
Right?
That
And they got
moment
the water in the background there. And she,
Gives her a flat top.
yep, gives her a flat top. But it's that scene. Like, oh, it's nice. And then in the end, there's a death whistle. And it's very creepy.
And a death rattle.
Oh, my God.
You get the...
It's very creepy.
It's yeah, like, and that's kind of like a microcosm of this album. Like, just when you get settled into one moment,
Losers, yeah.
they fuck with you and change it, but they do it so damn well. And granted, yeah, the end of the album did kind of creep me out a little bit.
It was creepy. I'm not gonna lie.
Holy shit.
Yes, holy shit indeed. And that's why I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5. This was a solid listen, and it was well constructed. It's a really good album. And man, I get on albums sometimes like, oh, you cut this, trim the fat. They've done that. They've already taken that and they've trimmed the fat out of this album. They've given you a complete idea, a complete thought, as erratic and all over the place as it may be. It all flows very well. The musicianship on this is top notch. Mike is on a roll. This is his best drum work. If you're into drums, percussion at all, it's worth a listen to this album. For that alone, it's worth the price of admission. On top of everything else that's great about this, vocals, everything. I dug the shit out of this. It really threw me for a curve because it was out of left field for me. Never heard of these guys, and they're like, oh, they're this and that and that. I'm like, what the fuck am I getting into? But this is fantastic. Fantastic album. 4.5 out of 5. Just don't listen to the last 10 seconds inside your house.
Alone.
Yeah.
I'm right with them. 4.5. I am a longtime Sigh fan, and I'm still bewildered every time I listen to a new album. And this one is, I don't know, it just feels different. Like there's this weird sort of progginess to it and this kind of cohesion that, granted, I love their wild, unpredictable style, but this, I don't know, everything just fucking flows so well in here. And like you said, like trimming the fat, this is only 46 minutes, but the songs are long, but again, not boring. They are constantly throwing interesting twists and turns along here. This is the most adventurous listen I think I've had from them, and that is definitely saying something because all their albums are fucking kind of nuts. The vibe, the atmosphere, everything about this is just absolutely insane. If you're a longtime Sigh fan, I can't imagine you won't get into this because it's Sigh, and they're gonna weird you the fuck out, but kind of dazzle you and make your brain feel like it's full of hornets. But I mean, if you were new to this band, this might not be a bad jumping on point. It's weird, but it's the kind of like avant-garde weirdness that I really get into, and I think this is just a flat out fun listen.
I'm not going to be any different here. It's a 4.5 for me, too. This is my first experience with this band, too, and I feel kind of bad because at this point in the game, this is everything that I like about crazy bands. Voivod, for an example. This, to me, is very much like Voivod in the sense where it's all over the goddamn map, but it makes sense. And you don't think it would. It's very cohesive, but to do what they're doing and to make it work the way they do, it doesn't seem like it should work, but it does. And I like the fact that this band is from Japan because you get a lot of influences that you don't find in most music, such as that Middle Eastern influence, such as the creepy kind of tribal things that are going on, the different noises that occurred. The overall mood, you can just tell it's kind of darker. It's kind of more adventurous. I've always been a gigantic prog fan, especially, prog metal, but this got to go in so many directions that you went from new age to the 80s to the 70s to the 90s to, it's like Arch Enemy, Haken, Genesis, Steve Wilson, and fucking Autopsy all write a record. That's really fucking weird, but it works.
Yeah.
At no point in this record whatsoever was I like, man, this is boring. I was more so the opposite side of the coin where, all right, next song. Ooh, this is 5.5 minutes long. I bet they're going to do some crazy shit. And they did. Again, the drum work is insane. Mike Heller, you did a fuck of a job, man. I had no idea that you had this in your arsenal. All the musicianship was killer. The vocals really kind of set it off. Everything in Japanese, but it sounds like a crazy gremlin. And
I fucking dug the vocals.
I did too.
I get on that style a lot.
And I do too. But it really just led to the overall dynamic of what's going on here. And dynamic I say lightly because God, man, there's so much shit going on, but it's such a good time. So yeah, 4.5 all day from me. Fuck yeah, guys, good job.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. There's a link to Patreon within that link. So while you're there, maybe check out some of the shirts, and we might have some.
We might have some new merch coming. Yeah, there's probably some new stuff coming.
You guys are putting stress on me.
Yeah. Hey, I own a couple of the prototypes. I would vouch for the fact that these are actually just things I would wear normally anyway. Yeah.
And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. That's like just fucking amazing to see this channel grow. We're almost at 12,000 subscribers, which is 12,000 more than I thought we'd get. But it's awesome to see it grow, and you guys are the fucking reason. So thank you very much, and we will catch you later.